If you drive an older car and are experiencing a ticking noise that increases the engine speed, it might be valve tick. In this video, I'm going to show you how I adjust valves on a small black Chevy in 5 easy steps, including setting the engine to top dead center, adjusting the valves to properly set the lash and load the lifters, using the distributor to set the other lifters, seating the valve covers with the new gaskets so they don't leak on the first try, and firing up the engine to verify the repair. Be sure to stick around to the end because I'm going to talk about root causes and key things to look out for after the repair is done. Alright, so let's get into it. Alright, so with the air cleaner out of the way and the PVC disconnected from the carb, we're going to work on pulling the valve cover off here. So at this point, what you want to do is locate the 0 marker on your timing tab above your harmonic balancer, and using a silver Sharpie, you can mark it like I did over here. You're then going to do the exact same thing on the marker on the harmonic balancer itself, and then rotate it clockwise so that the two line up together, as you can see in this picture here. All right, so now we've got the crank lined up to TDC, but the question is, which TDC are we doing? Now we want to see the rotor pointed in the front here, so that'll line up with the number 1 cylinder back there. Now if we did this correctly, the rotor will point right over here in the front. If it's not, if it's TDC in the back, that means TDC on cylinder number 6, which is no good. That means that we'll have to rotate the crank one full rotation, 360 degrees. So that means that the cam will rotate 180, which means that we'll have our rotor switched back to the front. So to do that, we're going to take off this cap, and we'll take a look at where our distributor rotor is pointing. And hey, we are pointed at the front. That is what we want to see. All right, on to the next step. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to loosen this up, the rocker, so we can validate the lash in the rod. Now, right now, I don't feel anything in here. Well, maybe just a tiny bit on this guy right here, but nothing substantial. So these are probably mostly good, but we're going to validate that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen this rocker arm nut right here. Oops. Check. Okay, I definitely feel the lash now, and this push rod spins pretty freely. So now I'm going to tighten, and I'm going to just move this back and forth until I can feel a slight resistance. You got to be careful with this because sometimes you're putting weight on the actual rocker with your ratchet, so it's good to just take it off, spin it. You can feel resistance on this one. Don't feel it with this, so let's try again. Okay, I can feel the resistance. We are good. And now the spec calls to rotate this 3/4 of a turn. So if my ratchet's at about 90 degrees here, we'll go up till she's at 12 o'clock. 3/4. And we're good. All right. Valve adjustment there is set. I do feel some looseness on here for sure. So okay, just got the resistance. We'll do 3/4 turn. So 1, 2, 3/4. All right. And now we are set. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is rotate the crank 90 degrees so that we're no longer pointed at the number 1 cylinder all the way on the far corner on the passenger side in the front. We actually want it to be the exact opposite. We want to be the number 8 back over here. So we're going to rotate the crank 90 degrees so that it points to the number 8 cylinder, which is going to be this plug right over here on our distributor cap. Now what I'm going to do here is, because I don't have a nice clean TDC mark on my harmonic balancer for the number 8 cylinder, so what you can do, you can make a little visual indicator right underneath, right over here, underneath the number 8 plug, right, so that when we take this off here for a second, when we have the distributor pointing at us, we're going to have a little visual indicator right there for the number 8 cylinder. This way it takes out all the guesswork and we know that we've rotated the full 90 degrees that we need. So let's go ahead and do that. And by the way, a nice way of just validating this is if I go all the way under the head here and I just pull ever so gently on the number 8 plug, you can see, yep, okay, number 8 is this cylinder here. So we're going to make a visual indicator and the rotor will point right over there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get underneath there and mark it with a felt tip pen. All right, I'm back from doing this off camera, but you can see right over there is where I marked. So when you have the distributor cap on, you can just get onto the side of this lip and then take it off. Give yourself a little bit of a hand here and bring it over. That's cool, and this will come off. It's pretty simple stuff. We'll clean this up later. But all right, let's go rotate the crank and get this guy pointed in the right direction. All right, I'm reshooting this because somehow I managed to, well, I cut my little finger. Anyway, so we're going to reset these, and then this goes, basically, this procedure continues. We're going to continue to rotate the crank 90 degrees for each item in the firing order, and so we're going to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So I'm not going to bore you to death by doing this over and over again for 7 more cylinders. I'm just going to adjust this one on camera, and then we'll do the rest. Okay, so we are all set with the lash adjustments on both sides of our cylinder heads here. So now what we need to do is wipe off any excess, any debris around the cylinder heads, but they look very clean because the previous person who was in here used rubber gaskets, which is pretty nice. So we'll get a rag on these guys, clean those up. We'll do the same thing on the valve covers, and then we'll get our new gaskets on. And stick around because I'm going to show the part number that I'm using for this. All right, so we're going to do the driver's side valve cover here first, and what I'm using are a Felpro VS12869T. These are a steel reinforced rubber gasket. These are really nice. They come with the load spreaders if your valve covers accept that. Most of them do. I don't think that my aluminum valve covers do. They were not used on this previously, and you can see where they would normally go on top. They don't fit here because they have this kind of, how should I put that, a receptacle of sorts to accept the screw through it. You wouldn't put the load spreaders on top of it like that. All right, but this is how it goes. This is the top side. These are directional, these gaskets, so you're going to want to pay close attention to that. So I'll show putting that on. All right, so the valve cover, the way that it goes on is this side right over here is the top, and it goes towards the intake manifold, and this is also the side that the push rods are on. And this is important because with these gaskets, where is it? Where are we here? Okie dokie, I found it. At the top of the gasket, you can actually see it says push rod side. So this needs to go towards the intake manifold. And what's nice about this, and this little kind of notch here that you see, is that this fits in perfectly with a cutout right over here on the valve cover. So if I just align this up real quick, you can see that there's a cutout for that, and it fits in very nicely. But over here, you will not see that cutout that's made. So they really take out the guesswork here, which is pretty nice. Now, the other thing that I'm using here, I just got a fresh package of this, is the 3M black super weather strip adhesive. Sometimes they also label this as weather strip and gasket adhesive, and you can even see right on the package, right? Exceptional bond strength and firmly bonds gaskets and seals. It's part number 08581. A lot of people use black silicone or RTV, and that's not exactly the same thing. And sometimes you can cause leaks with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a very, very thin coating of this to the valve cover itself, and that'll help keep the gasket in place and provide a good seal. Alright, so with our gasket in place, I've given this about 5 minutes to tack up and let it sit on a nice flat surface. We're going to get this guy back on. Alright, so next step is torquing these to spec. These do not require a lot of torque, but you do want to be smart about it. I like to go in a crisscross pattern, so I'm going to start up top over here. And the spec on this is 45 inch-pounds. Alright, and we're done. So I'll get this vacuum line back onto the carburetor. Very good. And we'll do the other side. Alright, so with our valve cover gaskets on, all we got to do is button up our distributor. Let's get this guy back on here. Okay. Nice and snuggy. Alright, and now, the moment of truth. Let's fire this bad boy up and see how she runs. We'll let it come up to temperature and see how our idle quality is like, and if the ticking went away. All right, so we're at full operating temperature. I see no moisture, no smoke or anything like that, which is exactly what we want to see. And the engine is running great, super smooth idle, really, really great. All right, I don't hear any ticking. Mission successful. All right, so let's talk root causes, because if your car is anything like mine and has hydraulic lifters, you're not supposed to have to make this type of repair. All right, so first, unless you're the original owner, you never know who was in there before you. On my car, we saw that it had rubber gaskets, and this car never came with rubber gaskets, so somebody was in there at some point. It's possible they made a wonky repair. Another possibility is that a lifter's collapsing. They are wearable components after all. But in all likelihood, it's a worn camshaft. So if this issue presents itself again in the near future, it may indicate that we need to do an engine rebuild, or at the very least, a valve train rebuild. So how are we going to know if this repair lasts on my car? Well, I suggest you subscribe to find out. And if you want to learn more about repairs or discoveries on this car, check out this playlist or check out the video right here.